Thank you, everyone, for coming to my talk, which is, of course, the importance of being you, which is a talk a little bit more like, I don't know, eclectic maybe, about us, or me, you, us, as bartenders, because I think bartending has changed a lot. Running bars has changed a lot, and even bar communities has changed a lot. And sometimes it's difficult to figure out where you belong. What is your position? What is your part, right? So I would begin just talking a little bit about us as bartenders first, and then move on to more for the bars, and maybe then think bigger afterwards. And for those who don't know who I am, my name is Monica, and I worked in this industry for quite a few years. I had a realization yesterday when I said, like, I've actually been a bartender now for 18 years, which is amazing because I'm only 21. Yes? Yes? No. So, yes, I've worked as a bartender for quite a long time, and I worked in bars way before it was remotely cool, probably, at least according to my parents. To make a few examples, one of the first cocktails I made was made in a bar that had an ice well, which was an IKEA kitchen sink. You know, I've worked in dive bars, I've worked in nightclubs, restaurants, you name it. And so the way that I see it is that as a bartender or as a person in this industry, you kind of have three phases. And then the first phase, or the first part, is kind of when you enter the industry, either as a barback, as a server, eventually a young bartender, and which is really the kind of time where you can take up all the knowledge, you can learn from people, you can discover new spirits, you discover new beers, wines, everything. But it's basically a time where everything is new. And it's an amazing time. And I always say to my colleagues or my staff that there's nothing wrong in not knowing. So always ask questions, but you have to listen to the answers, because if you have to ask the same question over and over and over again, then we have an issue, right? But also, like, this is the time when you can think about only yourself. And for me, I worked as a bartender for 8 years before I even thought about doing something else. And I had this period where I kind of jumped around a lot, and someone told me that you should really consider to stay a minimum 1 year in every place because it looks better for your CV. And I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds great, but what if I feel that I don't need to stay a full year in this place? What if I'm going there specifically to learn a skill? You know, then maybe 6 months is enough. If you want to learn how to dehydrate fruit, you don't really need a year. I would imagine. But so that if you work goal-oriented, I think it's fine today to jump around as long as you learn something and you take something away. I used to work in a nightclub, which was probably one of the most terrifying experiences of my life, because I went there specifically because I was not very fast. I could make cocktails, but I couldn't make them fast. So I thought, yeah, you know what? In nightclubs, you learn how to be fast. And I went there, and this was many years ago, obviously, and it used to be so condensed that at 12 o'clock midnight on a Friday or Saturday night, it used to be empty. There was not a single person inside. 12:30, you would have a full house and 15-meter queue outside. And you basically had, I think we were 8 bartenders divided by 2 bars. And in those 2.5 hours, because you have to close at 3 o'clock in Oslo, where I'm from, in those 2 hours, we used to have a revenue of around, I would say, with the conversion rate, let's say 55,000 euro. Like we used to be 5 deep. Like I used to make half of my tip just by people throwing coins in my head to get my attention because it was so far behind in the queue and there was no way that they would be served the next 10 minutes. And you just worked. And it was, I don't think I made that many amazing cocktails, but I made a lot of cocktails. So when I left, because I couldn't stay there for too long, I was better than I was when I came there. And I could do that because I had no responsibility. And then eventually, I kind of progressed into my next phase, which is kind of where you have experienced enough so that you know what you like, and you know that, you know what, I really love making cocktails that taste delicious, comes out slightly fast, but more so, I love making cocktails in the setting of food. And you can really kind of spend time to refine your skills and like deepen into the field that you like, right? And then for me, I always say to my bartenders that if you have any kind of goals or aims to become, I don't know, the best bartender, or you want to compete, you want to travel, you want to still explore things for yourself, then you should just stay here. Don't go for the positions that are head bartender, bar managers, and these kinds of things, because yes, it's a nice title to have, but it's a whole different set of skills that you need to use. Because if you want to grow as a person, then you can focus on yourself, but you shouldn't have responsibility for other people. The moment you step into a head bartender or a bar manager position, then you should focus fully on growing other people. Because then, and only then, you will see the rewards of having your bartenders coming from maybe their dishwashers, their servers, their bouncers, they can be anything, and then they just come in, probably not as much as you do, hopefully, but then you can really help them grow. And to be honest, I would say that I think I'm an okay bartender. I'm not the fastest, I'm not the smartest, I'm not whatever, but I would say I'm quite good as a manager because I really enjoy having a great team. And I think that it took me a while to understand that, but once I kind of understood, I was like, yeah, this is kind of where I enjoy to be. And also I know, because all my teams have always told me, that I'm very, very strict. I'm very strict. And also I see everything. There's nothing you can like sneak behind me. If you put half of the amount of ice in the shaker that I told you to put, I will hear it from the other side of the room. I will. If you kick the fridge, I will also hear it from the other side of the room because I will hear that the door is closing and you're still here. You should be here. So it's like, and these kind of things I learned because I spent almost 10 years working as a hostess, barback, cleaner. I even, believe it or not, am certified as a bouncer in Norway. So like the police said I could actually be in the door and I can actually throw people out, which I do also. But like, I really enjoy the manager position because I can do all of the things that I'm kind of good at. Like I can calculate the shit out of any cocktail. I do calculation, I can do that, but I can also help you to figure out what you want to do. And I think it's nice to find your kind of space and your part of the team. And so for me, I've always enjoyed very much education. I always enjoyed learning. I used to be like, yes, let's go to school half an hour early and just wait outside the door, because I love going to school. And so I understand that a lot of people don't feel the same way. And this is also the thing that you are, as bartenders are in a position to kind of educate your guests, because you take the time to learn, to find all the knowledge, which I find an illustration on Google. But you kind of use your experience as bartenders to connect the dots. Because what is knowledge without the experience to use it wisely. Because I can say, yeah, you know, tomato is a fruit, because it is. And he's like, no, okay. But your experience will prevent you from putting it into the fruit salad and putting it in the salad instead, because it makes more sense. Well, it can, I don't know. But, you know, it's all of these things. And so, like, the more that you learn in this period, the more you are able to give great experiences to your guests. And I think a lot of us, we always are very hungry for new tasks. We always want to progress, maybe too fast, maybe not too fast. But if there's one advice that I could say to bartenders, and I always say, is that take your time. You don't have to rush. I mean, like, we probably, most of us in this room have worked in bartender or as bartenders for a few years, maybe just a few months, but everything changes, you know? Everything changes, and that's inevitable. You can never prevent change, but you can choose to grow, or you can choose to get stuck, right? And as we kind of grow, we see, oh, there's new technology, there's new spirits, there's new brands, there's new ways of doing stuff. And so even if you have a new member of the team that's never worked behind the bar before, they can probably contribute something, and that will change the whole dynamic of the team. And it will probably, well, hopefully, create a better flow, better practices, better, I don't know. Even I just discovered the other day that if you change the setting on your computer, you can actually just click anywhere on the screen, and all of a sudden you can search your whole computer. I was like, what? How did I not know this? I also, embarrassingly enough, discovered this lighter that also has a bottle opener. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then my friend said, this has been around for 20 years now. I was like, oh, okay. Well, you know, sometimes you come late to the party, but at least you showed up. Whoa. So, yeah. So, how does this translate into the bars? You know, because, and I know there's been a lot of discussions about this lately. I'm not going to go too much into this, but I strongly believe that if you can tell people who you are so that they understand what to expect, then they already will like you more. Well, at least they will know where to place you. So as a bar, if you can tell your guests, this is what we do, this is why we do it, and this is how we do it, then they will say, oh, okay. Instead of, yeah, you know, we want to do a little bit of this, little bit of this, little bit of this. Basically, we want to be beige. Like, do you really want that? No. You want to understand. Can I come? Can I have a cocktail? Yes. Can I have naturally fermented wine from Sicily? No. Which is fine, because you can go somewhere else to have that, which is also delicious to drink. But if you can try to create a bar that does something, but does that something extremely well, then that is already being ahead of the game. And I put some of my favorite bars that does exactly that to the very extreme. It doesn't always have to be that extreme, but on the top corner here, you have Native in Singapore, which is a bar that not only focuses on local Asian and local Asian spirits, local Singaporean ingredients. They forage a lot in an area where nobody thought anything grew, well, at least edible things. And they have all these processes that I think I heard, I'm not sure, but they are down to now 100 grams of waste per night. 100 grams is not even a bottle, you know? So this is how much waste they produce for a whole night of service. And of course, not everyone can be like this, but at least someone is, you know? And it makes us all think. You have here to the left. I'm a very bad driver because I don't really understand the difference between left and right. It's both left and both right. So you have Le Syndicat, which is, of course, a bar that focuses solely on French spirit. And there's other bars that's been example of this before as well. Because if you are in this region of Europe, you have amazing produce. There used to be a bar in Munich called... Yes, thank you. Which you only used to have ingredients from 100 kilometers, which is also a great concept. You have Amas in Lima, which only uses ingredients from the Amazon. And these ingredients are not rarely, well, almost never seen properly outside of Peru, but almost not even outside of the Amazon because they are so fragile. When I went there, both to the bar and the Amazon actually, I tasted things that I didn't even imagine existed. I finally found the purpose of star fruit because it's not actually meant to be a sour, tasteless fruit. It tastes amazing. It tastes like a cross between passion fruit and mandarin, actually. And it's really delicious. You have Scout from London, which is a bar that redistills a lot of spirits, but also do foraging in London. And you think, really? Do you want to eat fruit that is foraged in London? Yes, you do. And it's also a lot of like these funny stories where they actually just jump into people's garden and take everything and then run away. So it's like guerrilla foraging. I shouldn't probably say this because it's a live feed, but yeah, sorry, Matt. And then you have one of my favorite bars actually, which is Open Closed in Umeå, which is in the north of Sweden, where you have Emil, who is, has an amazing palate, but also a great understanding of where he is. Because I did a guest shift there last year, and one of the memories that really stuck with me was that around, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning, they came these 3 gentlemen in smoking. So obviously they've been somewhere. And I think they were in their late 80s. And they came in, they ordered what I would imagine is the local equivalent of like a Cosmopolitan, which at least my grandfather would never have ordered a pink cocktail on a Saturday night, 1 o'clock in the morning. But to have this kind of understanding that, yes, your city is ready for cocktails, but to be able to translate this into a language that the city embraces, I just think it's amazing. And also, like, he's crazy sometimes with the flavors that he did. He did a drink with åkerbär, which is like a Nordic raspberry, and cheese, where he basically took 1 kilo of cheese, melted it down, and made 1 liter of sugar syrup. And he's like, wow, is this going to work, cheese? But it does. It's really nice. So I just love how kind of they have the courage to say, you know what, we don't do everything, but what we do is this, and we try to do it as good as we can. Because essentially, as bartenders, and probably more as bar managers, I would say it's our job to curate our offerings so that the guests can understand it, but also so they can understand who we are. And in this way, we can also, or we can gain their trust so that they know that, okay, when I come to you, you made me cocktails before, they tasted nice, so I will make, or I will drink your cocktails again. Because especially if you come from smaller markets, like I used to work in Oslo, it can be challenging because people don't have this history with cocktails. And so it can be very intimidating. And then they say, actually, you know what, I don't want to feel stupid today, so let's just go for a beer. Because being able to accommodate people's lower knowledge about drinks without saying, oh, you know what, this is what you should be drinking because, you know, this is cocktails. And he's like, yeah, but I don't even know what a drink is. So how can you kind of understand this? We need to understand that people don't have the same level like us. But we also need to be fine with it because at the end of the day, maybe you think that making mojitos or making Irish coffee or making the kind of drinks that people love to drink is boring because you've done it so many times. Well, tough luck. It's what we do. We are bartenders. We make drinks. We shouldn't judge what people drink because we should be happy that they come to drink with us. Another thing is like within the bar, we always see that there's always this fight between, not fight, I don't mean actually fights, but people tend to try to not understand their place. We all want to be head bartender or front and center, the busiest station. We all want to be like facing people. We want to host people. We want to talk to people. But we also need to understand that, you know what? Someone needs to be in the pot wash. Someone needs to polish glasses. Someone needs to unclog the toilet. It's the least glamorous thing to do, but we have to do it. And to really be able to find yourself and your place in the team can be challenging at least, because sometimes it comes very natural, but sometimes it doesn't. Because I worked with teams that I created myself, but I also worked with teams that I just inherited from either because I stepped into a position that I was that I didn't work my way up, or maybe sometimes other people, if you work for a big company, HR will give you a team to work with, or it's just that you have multiple personalities within the team that wants the same thing. You know, so in a team, we always need to work together. And how do we do that? How do we create this communication where we're all talking the same language? Because as I gave this example yesterday, so if I ask you all to come for dinner tonight, and say, I'm going to make you the best tartare of your life. And you're like, oh, that sounds nice. I like tartare. But probably half of the room is going to think, oh, we're going to have beef tartare. Like 1/3 of the room might think, oh, salmon tartare, tuna tartare, any kind of seafood tartare. And then actually what I meant was a beetroot tartare. So it's all tartares, but they're all different versions of it. How do we create a language that at least the team understands? Well, we create it by working together, spending time together, reading the same books, doing the same trainings, and always making sure that we create this very creative, collaborative space. Because if one person is doing this, if one person is doing this, it's really not a team. But also, like, you need to have these rules, no? So we always work with our team that you can criticize anything, and sometimes it's very difficult to take criticism from people. Because, so we implemented a rule also that you can criticize anything, but only if you can come up with the suggestions that makes it better. Because there's something, if you say, I don't like this drink, it's a very negative thing, and you don't really contribute anything. But you say, I don't like this drink because I think the balance is slightly off. Have you considered using malic, some kind of malic style of acid instead of citric acid? What if we change the lemon juice for very, very unripe apple juice or something like this, no? Then you contribute, then you start a discussion. And cocktails will, most of the time, be much better if you collaborate on them as a team. Of course, it's difficult because then you can't take credit. But do you really need the credit? Or do you want to have a delicious drink? I don't know. It varies from people to people, I think. But yeah, so, and this is kind of brings me on to the next thing. Because I think, at least it is my impression, that the bartending industry has changed a lot. It's become much more competitive. And I like competition, but I also like collaboration. So maybe a lot of cities or even countries could benefit from collaborating more outside of your own bar and try to build a stronger community. Because I think that if you go to a smaller city and you have one cocktail bar that does amazing cocktails, it's not necessarily going to change your life, no? It's not going to change the culture of the city. But if you start to have like 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 and so on, cocktail bars or bars, we don't need to call them cocktail bars, that continuously push the bar up, then you will see a change. Then people say, oh, you know, becoming more common to drink cocktails, not as a like Tuesday night entertainment rather than going to the cinema, then it's more like, yeah, of course we drink nice cocktails. Why wouldn't we? Why would you drink bad cocktails? Why would you drink bad cocktails? You don't need to. So, you know. And one of the things that I always enjoyed a lot is bars that kind of take what is around them and work with that. Because we can all go to any kind of metropolitan city, have the kind of Manhattans, martinis, old fashions, and these cocktails are classics for a reason, because they are delicious and they are kind of proven to work. But what if you start to work with the regional flavors? And so the last menu that I worked with, when I've been working in a bar called Himkok in Oslo, was that we wanted to kind of take the flavors of Norway. And then people say, yeah, but it sounds so gimmicky. Because if you go to Oslo and you go to all these like touristy restaurants or the tourist shops and buy the traditional produce, it's kind of gimmicky, it is. Like, but does it have to be? Like, if you, I will show you, this is like a mood board that we made for the menu. We wanted to take all these amazing ingredients that you have, amazing fruit, amazing dairy, and find and support, I would say, local producers that creates products that are very much an image of where they're from. You know, because in modern dairy, we're so used to having milk taste. What does it taste like? It tastes like milk. Yes, but what does milk taste like? Oh, milk. But what does that mean? Because we don't know anymore, because all the milk from all the cows goes into one bucket, is pasteurized and then sent out. It tastes like milk. But actually, if you go to a farm and you taste milk, you will see that, oh, actually every cow is different. We know that every cow is different, but they also then produces milk that tastes slightly different according to how they eat. And then like trying to work with drinks that are kind of created based on flavor rather than based on recipes or based on just this is right, so let's do this. But then, of course, this changes throughout the season. And seasonality is not just about the month you are in, the climate you are in. It's also about the techniques you use. Because, like, let's say if you live in Norway, where you could argue that it's winter at least half of the year. It's not. But yeah, the growth seasons are quite short. If you only think about raspberries as fresh raspberries, well, then you're going to have raspberries for 3 weeks, and then you're going to starve. But if you can try accept that seasonality is also a technique, then you can actually have raspberries 365 days a year or 12 months, because you pick the raspberries, and of course you indulge in fresh raspberries at the peak of the season, but you also start to pickle, you make preserves, you make jams, you make syrups, you make wine, you make liqueurs, you can even make distillates, you know? And then you can have raspberries all year, but it will taste and act differently. And this is kind of one of the ways that I enjoy very much working, and it also creates a much more connect, I would say, to the earth, because as bartenders we sometimes forget that there is actually something going on before the bottle. Oh, not before the bottles, we all know this, but before the distillery or before the winery, before the brewery. Because if we want good spirits, wines, juices, we have to take care of the soil. We have to take or support the farmers, because being a farmer is very difficult. Like one of my favorite farmers is here, is Atle, and he was telling me when we first met that he has a very big problem with the supermarkets. When they order his, let's say, plums, he's very vulnerable for, let's say they order a ton of plums on a for Friday, and it rains on a Wednesday. Well, then basically he's kind of fucked, because the plum, the skin will crack, and supermarkets mostly, they don't necessarily buy fruit or vegetable for flavor. They want fruit and vegetable that looks great on display. Doesn't matter what it tastes, as long as it looks nice, you know? But as a bar, do we need perfect looking fruit? No, because what will we do? We will juice it, we just make it into syrup, infuse it, we'll do something. We most likely won't serve it here. Here's a plum to your guests. So why can't we just buy it? Well, we can actually. And these kind of things makes you a part of your community much more than just being there, because you're actively searching out people, and you're collaborating with people, and you're making your mark, and you're a positive force or change. And I think that once you kind of get into this way of thinking, you can see also it doesn't have to be gimmicky to work with what is around you. And so like this was, again, the mood board for the last menu, and this is the finished product. You know, it's very modern in a certain sense, and it's every single drink is then based on a flavor or an ingredient. Of course, also I should say that Norway is a very strict country when it comes to alcohol. So you can't really promote alcohol, can't really show images of cocktails. So you have to kind of refine your storytelling skills and think outside the box, because you have to make people want to taste this drink that you can't tell them that it's a drink. Yes. And also, if you want to introduce a new spirit, you have to do it without actually telling anyone. So it can be a bit challenging. Just to see the full picture, here is how we ended up doing it, where you have the farm in the corner and the plum, and it's basically a very, very approachable aquavit sour, but then with the connection to the area, so that even people that don't drink this style of drinks, they will come into the bar and say, "Oh, I am from here," because they recognize the story, and they say, "Ah, I want to try it," and it's a really nice thing to do. Also, I think it forces you to work in a way that you have to be very creative. You have to plan a lot. And for me, I've always been very used to this whole harvesting things. I don't know, picking something from the field in the forest, or pulling something up from the sea. So for me, it was always very natural. But then a few years back, I moved from Norway to London, which is, of course, a whole different way of living, to be honest. I mean, like, there's within the M5 or whatever the highway is called, I think they say it's 11 million people. As a reference, in Norway, it's 5 in the whole country. We have a lot of space, which is nice. And you can find a lot of edible things in nature. But then when I came to London, and I said, yes, I'm Norwegian, I'm going for a walk. And then on my walk, I'm going to pick something. And then I went to the park, and this is what I saw. And I was like, maybe not. And for me, it was difficult to kind of learn how to be me as a bartender in a city that was so different. And it took a while to learn how to function with where I was, but eventually I started to find things like this, where now I actually can go and pick sea buckthorn, which is one of my favorite ingredients of all time, 15 minutes from my house. I didn't even know that it grew in England, to be honest. And it was amazing. I was biking one Sunday, and I was like, oh, and I fell off my bike. And my boyfriend came like, "Are you okay? What happened to you?" I was like, "Seabog He was like, "Oh, okay." Weirdo. Please get up on your bike and out of the road. And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." And every day you discover, because for me, I don't. I've never kind of worked with flavors that I don't have this reference of growing up with. And it doesn't mean that you have a limitation, at least in my opinion, because who says that you can't do tiki cocktails even if you are in Norway? Nobody. Even Thor Heyerdahl, which is like one of the heroes of the country, he had built a raft and sailed from South America to Galapagos, the East Island, and kind of is a big reference within the tiki culture, you know? Like, just because you are in an area that doesn't necessarily have pineapple or passion fruit or these kind of tropical flavors doesn't mean that you can't use or create drinks in this style. We did something called Nordic Tiki, where we took all the, not all, that's too much, but a lot of the famous tiki cocktails, and we remade them with Nordic ingredients. We don't have pineapple in Norway, but we have something called pineapple weeds, which is like a weed that you can find in the parks. And when you pick it, you boil it down with the sugar, it tastes like pineapple. And it's free, which is even better. So, I mean, just using the creativity, and you can create cocktails that are in the style that you want, but different. It's more like in the style of what you do normally. And I think that is one of the things that we as bartenders are very good at, is being creative and seeing limitations as opportunities to grow. And this is what I wanted to share.